to the table. Obviously today is about the disestablishment of Let's Get Wellington Moving. We'll let the presentation go through and we'll answer questions at the end. So, Siobhan, I'll hand over to you.
Perfect. We will be aiming for about 20 minutes presentation. It may go even quicker, depending on how quickly I talk. Okay, thank you, councillors. Yes, so today, disestablishment of Let's Get Wellington Moving programme. With me, I have Kelly Henderson, who is currently the partner lead into the programme, and also Brad Singh, who is going to be the recipient of some of those projects. So he's going to be spinning up a new team to deliver some of the projects as a result of the disestablishment. So what we'll cover off today are the reasons for the change, so how we got here. I'll give you a quick update of the status of each of the projects that made up the whole programme, and then what the plan is moving forward. Right, this is quite a complex slide. There's a lot of information on here, and it took some of us back down memory lane constructing it. So we can go all the way back 10 years here to when the Ngurunga to Airport Governance Group was set up, and there was a memorandum of understanding signed by Wellington City Council, Greater Wellington Regional Council and Whakatahi New Zealand Transport Agency. In 2015, Whakatahi and ZTA provided their Basin Bridge proposal, which was one of the transport initiatives aiming to resolve the problems of congestion in the city, and that was rejected. So at that point, the Ngurunga to Airport partners took a fresh look and a wider look at the city's transport system, also with a view of looking at how transport can incentivise urban development and that connection between transport and land use. And as a result of that, Let's Get Wellington Moving was actually born out of that. In the period between 2015 and 2019, there was quite significant citywide engagement undertaken to ask Wellingtonians what they wanted in terms of both the transport system and also that urban development component. And we asked them questions around whether they wanted better public transport, improved the state highway, active transport improvements, including improvements to walking and cycling, and also how we should best manage travel demand. And in 2019, there was an announcement at Wellington Railway Station where the Minister of Transport at the time, supported by the Mayor of Wellington and the Chair of the Regional Council, announced the indicative package for Let's Get Wellington Moving programme. And I think that's the point at which the Let's Get Wellington Moving programme, as we know it today, was actually initiated. If we move on to 2020, when the programme was established and there were a number of projects specifically set up, 3-year programme of delivery. We also then had the transformational programme really starting to take shape, and that was the improvements at Basin Reserve, new tunnel, Mount Vic Tunnel, as well as mass rapid transit. In 2021 was when the Project Management Office was established or formally established, and at that point we also reconfirmed the project objectives. So there was a significant workshop with Regional Council, Wellington City Council and Whakatahi, where we confirmed those Let's Get Wellington Moving objectives, which were that we wanted to develop a transport system that enhances urban amenity and enables urban development outcomes. One that provides more efficient and reliable access for users, one that reduces carbon emissions and increases mode shift by reducing reliance on private vehicles, improves safety for all users, and is adaptable to disruption and future uncertainty. So also at that workshop, we agreed weightings for that, and by far the largest weighting was a 40% weighting on reducing carbon emissions and increasing mode shift by reducing reliance on private vehicles. So that was a reset for the programme, essentially, and really focused the work on the indicative business case for that transformational programme. So Let's Get Wellington Moving was made up of transformational, which was Mass Rapid Transit, State Highway 1 and Mount Vic Tunnel, and then what we now call today the transitional. So it was previously also known as the early delivery program and a 3-year delivery program. And what was in that package was Thornton Quay Hut Road, Golden Mile, Cobham Drive Crossing, and then the City Streets program of projects, which I'll talk about in a little bit more detail later. So 2022 just saw the program essentially progressing, and then the indicative business case for MRT, State Highway and Mount Vic also was issued in that year. 2023 saw the continuation of design options and engagement for city streets. We had the construction of some targeted improvement projects. We opened Cobham Drive Crossing in January 2023. We completed the design for Thornton Quay Hut Road. We started construction on the Ayrtia Quay roundabout, and the detailed business case was progressing along with the schematic design for the integrated mass rapid transit route. In late 2023, following the formation of the coalition government, NZTA, Wellington City Council and Regional Council agreed in principle to disestablish the programme, and a formal agreement to do that has been established in January this year. And what that has now triggered is a transition of the transitional programme from Let's Get Wellington Moving into Wellington City Council. So reasons for the change, self-explanatory. We've agreed to dissolve the programme, and we reached agreement between, at a meeting that Mayor Farno had with Chris Bishop, Simeon Brown and Darren Ponter, the agreement to dissolve. In that agreement, it was acknowledged that Wakakatahi will plan and build and fund the Basin Reserve upgrade and the second Mount Vic Tunnel. It was also agreed that Wellington City Council will bring the Golden Mile, Thornton Quay projects in-house and work to cost efficiencies, improve bus routes, improve pedestrian access, and also improve and reset the engagement with local businesses. As a result of that, the City Streets programme, highest priority projects will be incorporated into our programme of bike network rollout. So we're looking to basically produce an integrated transport programme over the next 10 years. So the City Streets looked at improvements to cycling, but also a very strong focus on walking and PT. And I know that you had a presentation not so long ago about the Bus Priority Action Plan, and there was an inference that the Bus Priority Action Plan had been put on the shelf. That isn't correct. The Bus Priority Action Plan was always incorporated into that City Streets programme, so we will be bringing what we can of that back in-house. So in terms of our transition plan, we have been working on this now at some pace. We are going through an HR process in order to transition the projects back from the programme. The programme will officially come to a close on the 31st of March. We are planning to stand up our transition team on the 11th of March. We really want to transition the Golden Mile, Thornton Quay and Hut Road and other projects to WCC as efficiently as possible. We have got Vida and the team reviewing the City Streets programme and making strategic decisions about which projects will have priority of delivery within that programme. We are establishing a team which will report to Brad Singh to deliver Thornton Quay Hut Road and Golden Mile, plus any City Streets projects that come out of the planning phase over the next few years. Really importantly, we are reviewing the project scopes, especially for the Golden Mile, against available budgets, ensuring these projects can be delivered on time and to budget and to a standard the community expects. One of the key things we're seeking through this transition is to really reset our relationship with the business community of the Golden Mile to ensure that whatever we do there is done with minimum disruption, and that we can take them along on the journey with us. We're working together with our partners to ensure that the closeout and post-closeout goes smoothly. and we're also working through any adjustments required with Wakatai as our funding partner. Right, now this is quite small and we have some maps, so we can probably provide you some maps which will show this in a bit more detail. So on the left are all of the projects that were within the Let's Get Wellington Moving programme, and on the right are effectively the transport projects that are effectively surviving that programme. So we've got what I talked about before, those projects that are coming into Wellington City Council, and then also the projects that Wakatai is saying they will also deliver, being the Mount Vic and the State Highway improvements at Basin Reserve. Just a very quick overview of the project status. So Golden Mile is in design. It's in 80% design. We're currently working on value engineering for that, and then also appointing a contractor for construction. Thorndon Quay, Hutt Road, Aotea Quay. So Thorndon Quay is in construction, as is Aotea Quay. We are coming up to completion for Aotea Quay roundabout. Thorndon Quay has a little while more to run, and Hutt Road is a pre-implementation, but as you're aware, with the LTP program, the proposal in there is that we don't progress Hutt Road any further. Mass Rapid Transit and State Highway 1, as I said before, they are transitioning over to NZTA, and that is Wakatai led. We don't have any further information on that at this point in time. And City Streets is also coming back to us as a programme, noting that's in development. So when we talk about development, that is the business casing phase, or that planning phase, where the team will work to make a case for investment. So where that was left off with the programme, there's a number of projects in that City Streets programme, and they were in two tranches, and the tranche one were very close to having their business cases completed, but work was halted on those. So because we're now integrating them with the bike network plan, we do actually have to just rescope and reshape those business cases somewhat, and I'll talk about the priority projects in that shortly. And then Cobham Drive crossing, that has been handed over. It's all completed, and is running without any delays to traffic. So, Thorndon Quay, Hutt Road. The projects are moving to Wellington City Council to be delivered. We're 100% designed for all of that. The basic objectives for this was prioritising bus access and pedestrian safety, and also cycling safety as well, and easing congestion for more reliable service into the city. Golden Mile, another project that is moving to Wellington City Council. So this project would see a 75% increase in footpath space, removal of general traffic, improved bus reliability and efficiency, and that's at 80% design. And as you're all aware, with the LTP program, what the proposal is would be to rephase the construction. So the plan had that being constructed over the next 2 years, for pragmatic and achievable, to achieve the full completion requires us to deliver that over a longer period of time, and we would seek to complete Courtney Place first, and then Lambton Quay. That's really looking at improving our bus travel times along Golden Mile, which is the core spine for the Central City bus network, and then also improving that public space by increasing the footpath space, and also doubling the amount of trees and putting a dedicated cycle path in as well. City Streets. So, as I said, a strong focus for City Streets was on bus priority improvements as well as cycling and walking. These are coming in to us to be reprioritised. The key priority and what we have planned in the proposed long-term plan proposal is the second spine along the waterfront. So that's really critical in terms of maintaining bus efficiency and reliability once the Golden Mile upgrade has been completed. And then also CBD to Miramar as well is seen as a key priority corridor for that work as well. Really, if you were going to sum up city streets, it's around people-friendly streets, being a programme of work of improving connections for people on buses, bikes or walking on key routes between central city and suburban centres. Given it's now moving back into Wellington City Council and a large portion of the funding in terms of the delivery funding has been removed, we're really focusing on where we see those priorities are and how they can be integrated into the bike network plan. Mass rapid transit is on hold, so has been removed from any work, so it's not transitioning to NZTA. There was a huge amount of work done on the MRT solutions. We'd got 50% through the detailed business case, with optioneering undertaken in partnership for a full route from the railway station to Island Bay. And we're about 12 months away from finishing the business case for mass rapid transit. There's a 30% schematic design for an MRT solution that can inform future route protection and future transport planning, and 30% design for eastern bus enhancements and a tunnel connection. So also quite a lot of detailed costings for an MRT solution were undertaken, as well as investigating where you could stable whether it's a bus rapid transit or light rail options. So a lot of work was done on that. State Highway Basin and Reserve will move to Wakatahi New Zealand Transport Agency. The design, again, same as MRT, was about 30%. So the detailed business case was an integrated business case of MRT and Basin and State Highway 1. So that's essentially being separated out with Wakatahi to lead that and to deliver it. So again, we're still waiting on what that looks like. And I suspect it will also be informed by the Transport GPS, which is due out any day now. So moving forward. It has been, Let's Get Wellington Moving as a programme has been disestablished as agreed by partners. We are now bringing in those projects for delivery in-house and doing our due diligence on Golden Mile. We have started construction on Thornton Key Hut Road, so we've got oversight over that now, and we are setting up a new team to deliver these projects. So there are likely to be efficiencies in how we can deliver these projects. I should note here that the terms of the relationship funding agreement always envisaged Wellington City Council being the principal for the delivery of these projects. They are local road projects. So the significant change is we will be delivering them ourselves. We would always have been principal to the contract, even if the programme had endured. So we think that we can deliver efficiencies, and we've already got established processes around approvals, decision making, and obviously it's probably easier to make a decision with one party rather than three. It's a positive change for the city. We can ensure better engagement with businesses, and we can move from listening to delivery. And this is a really important point for our team that we want to make, is that resetting of business engagement is going to be absolutely critical to success of this. The reason why Golden Mile has been put up as a core infrastructure project is because it's going to deliver a CBD which is economically vibrant and can support businesses well into the future. And the Wellington region continues to grow, so accommodating this growth is going to be an important focus area in the short and long term. So we are really keen to understand what the plans are for State Highway 1 and to see how we can also be involved in that, especially with regards to any urban development opportunities that may present to us. So, is the right button?
Okay, questions.
How was that for time?
That was very, very quick. Thank you. So I'll start with Councillor Wineta. I'm going to pan it.
Kia ora team, thanks for that. So you mentioned that there might need to be tweaks to the Wakatahi funding arrangement for some of these. Are any of are any of those remaining projects likely to suffer significant de-scoping due to renegotiations and funding arrangements between us and them?
So in the City Streets program, that is subject to our normal business case process, whereby we have to submit a business case to Wakatahi, then they approve it. So it's not a done deal until that process runs its course.
Hey, what happens for the Golden Mile? What happened to a lot of that work done by the Mana Whenua design group, and what will that partnership look like now that it's in-house?
We've had ongoing meetings with Te Piringa as these changes have happened since around election time to make sure that they're involved in the decision making and what we're going to do going forward. Our Mataho Aranui team are supporting us to make sure that the future partnership we have with our Mana Whenua partners is the best that we can for these projects going forward. I think the Mana Whenua designs as part of the Golden Mile project are unlike anything we've seen in the city before, so we want to make sure we keep working together with them on that. We've also had meetings with Helmut and Kirsty as our CE partners to make sure that they're informed of this. So the exact scope and positioning of it within the organisation is still being collaboratively worked on, but it's definitely a live conversation that we're having.
Okay, as long as it stays. And then, actually, on that, what would be the process for any further tweaks that council might wish to make to the Golden Mile? Poisonous question, that one.
Oh, give it to Brad.
Sorry, what was the question?
The question was, what would be the process for any further tweaks that council might wish to make to the design?
Right. So at the moment, what we've got is we've got a design that we are looking at, and we'd be looking at the cost implications of the design as well as the benefits that we're getting from the different parts of the design. Any massive changes that we're making to design that isn't value engineering, that is value engineering core components of the design that would have a result to the benefits would need to be communicated and would need to be brought back to council in terms of we're making drastic changes to the design. So if there are significant changes that we'll be making to the design, that would need to come back here. But that would happen based on the value engineering and understanding the scope as well as what the cost would be of executing that scope.
Councillor Pennant.
Thank you, that was incredibly useful. Just following on from that last question, putting 2 bus stops in a major change? 2.
So we've got quite a lot of work to do internally to actually look at what needs to be done in terms of the design review, any value engineering we do in terms of what the current cost is of the 80% design. We'd really like to be able to move quickly to a point where we can share that 80% design with you. But yeah, we have to actually, there's a lot of moving parts here, so we haven't even really got a good view of the schedule as yet. So that would have to come back. But on your point, and we did go through this when we put the traffic resolution in, the removal of those bus stops, they were removed for a reason, and they do impact on the benefits that you get from improved bus efficiency and reliability.
Which comes to my second question, is why is offloading onto pedestrians more travel time to walk between bus stops a benefit? Because essentially it's what you're doing. You're saying you have to walk more to save time when you do get on a bus. It's a bit like when you go into even our organisation, spend half an hour putting in your details to log into an organisation. Just moving the time.
I think it probably comes down to the number of people who are moving with buses versus the number of people who have to walk between bus stops.
Okay. And just my other question for now was, so what exactly are we going to be able to do in terms of the bus priority program over the next 10 years? Just you said you hope to do as much as possible.
Well, that's right. So we have to, because we're now bringing City Streets program in and we're integrating it with the bike network plan, there's quite a lot of scoping needs to be done and planning to then determine what actually can be done within the budget that we've allocated in the proposed long-term plan program.
So would that advice be ready before June?
No.
Oh, okay. So if we wanted more money through the long-term plan, because for me this is high priority, we would need to do, at next budget time, maybe next June.
So this is where I wish I had eyes in the back of my head. Vida, have you got a high-level time frame of what you're working to?
Oh, yeah. So what we've put into and loaded into the long-term plan is that there's the 2 priority projects which will start progressing from the start of the next financial year, and they will take. We've put in around a 3-year time frame for those 2 priority projects, and then we've put in 2 years to develop a business case for an integrated transport plan. So that is the second spine in Miramar to CBD to Miramar. So that new business case will be able to inform the next LTP.
So that means we could potentially be waiting for 10 or 15 years to get a proper network for our buses, or will the Let's Get Welly Moving program at least help with that, with some money?
So when that second spine is one of the key bus projects in the city, Greater Wellington have indicated to us the need for that to ensure that there's enough capacity through the city. So that's why it's a priority project, and we're suggesting we start it from July in the next financial year with the design. In terms of the rest of the city streets, we need some time to understand the priorities of those at a network level and take a network view to it across the different modes. And therefore, we are suggesting that we don't decide exactly what projects we're going to be doing until we have that information to be able to weigh them up, because we don't have the financial capacity to do all of the city streets projects. But it doesn't mean we'll have to wait 10 years.
Councillor Free.
Yeah, my questions are around the positioning of that tunnel that's shown on the, the revised, and I noticed it's a diagonal solution. Has that been confirmed through the process that's gone on to date?
No, it has not, and Wakakotahi is revisiting the business case framing because it was amalgamated with Mass Rapid Transit. They're looking at their options about how to deliver a tunnel, and we're not really involved in that process, but we selected the diagonal tunnel to show you on the map because it was what was publicly published at IBC stage. We don't have any further information.
Just to follow up on sort of the redesign options, one of the flaws I saw of the current, what we were presented, was the lack of connectivity for cycling routes through the city. Is it possible for us to get a better steer on how that's actually going to be managed if we're rethinking things like bike lane on Golden Mile, for example?
Yes, I wanted to speak to that actually when Vida was answering about the new process that we're going to undertake when we're looking at this. I think it's important to remember that we will still partner with Wakakotahi and with Greater Wellington as part of our usual processes. And so even though the program is ending, we are actively communicating and liaising with the teams in those organisations to make sure that we are informed and across of what's happening. As you'll appreciate, though, the disestablishment is kind of happening right now. So we don't have a lot of clarity about things like the Mount Vic Tunnel or anything like that.
See, just one quick one. Like, there's been $120 million spent on thinking and studies and what have you. What will we get for that? Can we have access to what's? Like, I hope it just doesn't disappear into a backroom cupboard somewhere. There's a lot of value
not. And
there.
in fact, we made specific mention of this in the agreement, the dissolution agreement that we signed, is that all the IP comes in-house. All partners will have access to the IP that's been created through the programme.
Councillor Randall.
Yes, thank you. In terms, you're reviewing the scope of all the work that's been taken on board. Does that review include, or maybe you can explain, is there a change in the risk of these projects now that the City Council is taking lead? Like, for example, if the costs blow out on this project, as they've already done once, who wears the risk of still funding and continuing the project, and what other risks do we have?
Yep, very good question. So if we took the Gold Mile, that's why we are taking so much care now to make sure that whatever we scope for the Gold Mile can be delivered within the budget that we have. So any risk of cost blowout would likely be at council's risk. But again, it's dependent on what, I think it's largely dependent on what comes out of the GPS as well, in terms of that'll be a clear statement of government's intention with regard to transport.
So, is it possible in terms of the future funding risk, because NZTA are funding 51%, with the GPS, could that potentially change the funding arrangements or things that would or would not be funded? Not for the projects that are coming into delivery, so not for Golden Mile or Thornton Quay Hut Road, because that was subject to a board approval, which pretty much set those that far for us. City streets, yes, because we haven't gone through that planning or developed business cases. There is potential that the FAR would change. How likely that is, I wouldn't want to venture at this point. I mean, standard FAR has been 51.49 for, well, in my memory. It's a standard rate, yeah. Okay. And lastly, you talked about us developing an integrated transport plan and working with Greater Wellington around, bus priority and the bus priority plan. Is the city, are we going to get a bus plan for Wellington that is, has actually got all of the, future of all the bus things working together, so that we get away from this piecemeal one section by one section approach? Or is our integrated plan that we come up with the only thing that's going to try and hold it together, and regional council will still do its own thing?
That's the intention with this integrated plan that will feed into the business case or whatever we end up doing, but we need to understand all of those modes and how the city works as a network and exactly not as individual corridors. So that's a key part of understanding and why we're working so closely with Greater Wellington for this.
Yeah, I think just through you, Madam Chair, interim Madam Chair, standing in, Madam Chair. And to add to Vita's comments, so we've been working on what they call a reverse brief with Greater Wellington Regional Council, to exactly to your point, Tony, which is, are we going to get an actual plan? That's the intention. So the reverse brief is due, I think it was due last week before, just trying to make sure we both agree what this integrated transport plan will produce for Greater Wellington Regional Council and for Wellington City. That includes buses. So, look, I'm hopeful, but to your point, it's exactly what we're trying to achieve.
So I'm just really asking as much about, is the regional council going to have a plan for Wellington bus service against which we are going to operate, and in their plan is all our bus services, so we know everything's going to work together?
Yeah, look, that's the intention, and I think you'll recall the mention of the second spine. They're very keen on progressing that because of the monitoring capacity issues they have on Golden Mile already. So how deep it goes, Tony, I can't say in terms of the details. Sometimes you require.
I know, but we're asking for it.
We intend to make sure we have a plan that is operating for everyone in the city in all routes.
Okay, thanks. Can I go on the list again, please?
Yep. Councillor Chung.
Great, thanks very much. My questions actually follow on from Councillor Free there. The business plan that we're actually doing for mass transit, that's going to continue on this year. So that's going to be financed 50%? No, it's not.
So mass rapid transit, so that's stopped. So the plan for mass rapid transit stopped as part of the Let's Get Wellington Moving Disestablishment.
But I saw there that we're still continuing on with the business plan. Resources. Now, because we're taking over a lot of the work that Let's Get Wellington Moving we're doing, what are our resources like to be able to cope with this extra work? Do we need more people? Or?
So we're actually building a team now. So the transition process included an HR process that we need to follow. Mm-hmm. We've established what the team structure needs to look like in Brad's area, and we're undertaking the recruitment for that now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so do we have the budget for that?
That's funded out of the capex of the capital project.
I see. Okay. Right, that's great. Thank you.
Councillor O'Neill.
Kia ora, thank you. Earlier in the term, when we got advice on a notice motion to pull out of the program, we were warned that we would have a significant buyout cost. What does the dissolution agreement say towards buyouts or payouts?
So because there was mutual agreement, there's no liability on either
Central
party.
government doesn't need to
No.
do anything. And I, just in terms of, I'm interested with the City Streets program, and you said assessing as a network. What happens if Greater Wellington or central government decide that the projects they've been divided up with are not priorities anymore? And then how does that kind of affect the phasing of our projects that we've got?
Well, it's really important to note that Regional Council don't have any projects. So Regional Council operate our bus network. We provide the infrastructure on which they operate their bus network. So in terms of government decisions on that funding, as I said before, it's most likely to impact city streets in terms of their direction, but we won't know that until the GPS is issued. And even then, until the regional long-term plan is confirmed, which usually happens around August, we won't really have any certainty. That doesn't prevent us in the meantime progressing with the planning, because that's the only thing we had planned to do. We weren't planning to deliver any of those city streets projects during that period.
Cool. And then just final part, what is the process of kind of handing over contracts and other things where we've got 3 names on them at the moment?
Yep. So in terms of contracts, it was just either Wakatahi as principal or Wellington City Council. So where we need to novate those contracts that were in Wakatahi's name, we are going through that process. For the vast majority of what's coming over for delivery, we were already named as principal, so we're the principal to the contract already.
Councillor Calvert.
Thank you. So can I just get it clear in my mind, just for some of the Q&As have happened, after 7 years, has been that we do not have an integrated transport plan for our streets. Is that right?
So we had quite a comprehensive plan for both transport and urban development through the Let's Get Welly Moving program. So that City Streets program was integrated, but noting also that we had a bike network plan as well. So they were always separate programs. They spoke to each other, but they were separate.
So we haven't got an integrated plan. That's why we're still working on one.
Yep.
Okay. Just because I was curious with the pictures of the tunnel in slide 15, there was no cars or trucks or anything. Where are they?
I'm sure you'll see some updated renders of the tunnel in the near future.
Well, I just said this isn't. Well, I just want to make sure cars can get through the Mount Vic Tunnel. There doesn't seem to be any. But there's a lot of mass rapid transit, but that's been canned. So I just can't understand why you couldn't put up-to-date renders in there. Didn't you not have any with showing cars?
No, so the renders are very expensive to produce, and the program focused on the development of the business case before issuing new renders that were publicly available since the ABC went
So
out
it
for
was sort of
consultation.
determining the solution before. Okay. Now, we've got this. I really would like to see costs and schedules, even rough figures, because we're going into our LTP, and maybe we need to cut more of this, not just assume. And I hear you're building another team, because as we know, our city finances are quite fragile, like the country's. And we've just been, our outlook has just been downgraded from stable to negative under Standard & Poor's today.
I don't think that's right.
That is incorrect. Our rating was always negative.
No, the outlook. The outlook,
was
not the rating.
always negative.
Well, okay. Well,
They
then
have decreased their rating for 15 other councils from stable
Right.
to negative,
Okay.
but as has not been affected.
Okay, so ours is still negative then. Okay, so we're still in a negative rating. So I just negative outlook. Negative outlook. Anyway, it's not looking good. So I'm just being realistic. So when can we see a rough schedule, a rough costs per project to help us, other than just budget lines in an LTP? When can you get, because this has been 3 months ago this was announced, and this is our first briefing. When can we see high-level costs and schedule?
I'm pretty sure in the Q&As that came back from the LTP meeting that there was a high-level outline of costs for the City Streets programme.
Yeah.
So,
but I'm asking for this whole program. We've got a very nice presentation. I would really like to see costs and schedules as part of this, so that we've got all the information in one spot, rather than having to go back and look at some Q&As.
Okay, well, we can provide what we know. But as I said, we're going through our due diligence for Golden Mile at the moment and looking at determining what a detailed schedule. That is going to take time. This is quite a significant project. And we do need to build a team to be able to deliver this effectively. So that will take some time, but we have provided some of that information already.
But I thought to get things audited for the LTP, we have to have such information.
So in terms of information for the long-term plan, we need to base it on the best available information.
That's fine.
The best available information we have right now is the information that has been built into the long-term plan. We will continue to revise information for all of our projects and programs and costs as we prepare this long-term plan, because the world doesn't stop just because we're producing a document. So we're comfortable at this point in time that what we've included within the budgets is the best available information based on what we know, and we will continue to revise that.
I will say that at the moment, there is a lot to go through. There's a lot of cost to understand in terms of where things are at, how much we've paid for stuff, how much is left over. We don't want to bring you schedules and costs without understanding exactly what the picture looks like. And so we're working on that to bring that over from the program, develop that picture. The one thing that I think Council has asked for in the past, which we are now able to do better off, is provide you with regular updates. So one of the benefits of having the projects in-house is that we can bring you regular updates. We can let you know once we've understood exactly what the schedule will look like for these projects, exactly how much it's going to cost us, or what we can deliver for the cost and the budgets that are allocated. Then we'll be bringing that back to Council so that you're aware of that as well.
Councillor McNulty.
One of the big areas of discussion when we had the submissions was that pedestrian conflict with the cycleway design that was put down there. And I'm thinking, in light of the Keys Please petition and the Featherston Street plans, whether that is going to be evaluated in the value engineering scope. Does that actually need to remain in Lambton Quay?
So I think, as you know, there's a number of WCC staff who've been involved in the development of Golden Mile all the way through, and we are continuing to look at improvements that can be made. However, I will say, in working with Wakakotahi on the future of this project going forward, any major design changes that we make now will put that FAR funding at risk. So we kind of want to protect as much of the project scope as we can and make sure we can deliver it within that funding envelope. I'm not saying that we can't answer any questions about those things that could be changed. Potentially there are changes that can be made that won't have major scope or financial impact, and we can look at that.
I'll just double onto that, is that this has now been treated like any other major project that we do through WACA. So if you amend a project and you detract from the benefits or change the benefits associated with the project or increase the project cost, there's a re-evaluation exercise that you need to go through with NZTA to ensure that they're still willing to co-fund that. So diminishing benefits that we'd initially indicated at a business case level would trigger potentially a review of funding with WACA.
I guess I'm just thinking, if a GPS comes through and it says cars, 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 which would be a educated guess, but that, and that aligns with the new direction that the New Zealand Transport Agency are seeking to take, if that would qualify for us to look at it. It seems that there could be an argument to build a much better connection on Featherston Street to high quality and remove that pedestrian conflict out of there. So I guess as elected members would like, I'm probably speaking for a few, but the opportunity to explore that to some detail.
Yep, got it.
Councillor Matthews.
My question is maybe one for Liam about urban development. Given so much of our urban development plans, what we were actively going to drive was related to MRT, just kind of any sort of initial comments about what opportunities there might be still without MRT.
Through Madam Chair, well, there's always opportunities in Wellington. It's a fantastic city, great city to invest. Makes it harder, actually. So, we talk about MRT, it's mass rapid transit, right? So that's buses and or, light rail. And this is often the argument that people had during Let's Get Wellington Moving. But what we do know, and verified overseas, is that, for example, light rail brings you the optimum amount of investment and therefore housing and therefore investment in your city that we see globally. Buses, not so much. And that's just facts and verified by examples overseas. So, look, it's going to be harder. But planning for the city will require some form of mass rapid transit route into the future, and we need to keep our eyes on that, in my opinion.
Yeah, is there any kind of initial thinking about what other potential financing tools there might be to keep hope alive with MRT, IFF, or...?
Nothing that I can advise at this stage, but yep.
Councillor Wineta.
Goodness. So some of that that sponge city mahi that was done as part of Let's Get Wellington Moving, where did that land?
It has landed as a part of a lot of great work that was done in development of the program. It still sits within some of the criteria for assessment with things like Golden Mile and Thornton Quay. To be very honest, I think we have a lot of work to do in that area as a city going forward, and so we need to make sure it's not lost. But where it sits exactly...
Yeah, and I think we did talk about doing the Blue Network plan, which will start next financial year, so that's a place we can pick that up and then continue it through and look into that integration throughout the city.
Great, what a great idea, Blue Network plan. Can we talk a little bit about the idea of a potential busway as an MRT option, and in fact bus lanes in general, where they're going to sit under the new City Streets program?
Yep, so they're a key part of that integrated transport plan. So the second spine is looking at bus lanes. We've already implemented a number of bus lanes over the last 3 years through the Bike Network program. So Kent and Cambridge and Adelaide Road all the way to the hospital have them. So the second spine, you can say we're missing the section along the quays. So we'll be looking at that, doing that project in particular.
That first part of the question. Okay. And then finally, just endlessly banging the drum about the fossil-free CBD resolution that was passed in previous term of council. Could I just get a bit more information about how that's influencing the City Streets project?
Yeah, so that Te Ara Tātou will also go into that integrated network plan, along with looking at parking, looking at logistics. We really want to make sure that we've got a full layer of layers to understand how we keep the city humming.
Cool, right, thank you.
Councillor Pennant.
Thank you. Just following on from Rebecca's question, Liam, I also agree we need MRT, but we're not going to get it just yet. So at the time the arrangement was announced, there was some suggestion some housing could be done. So something better than nothing.
Madam Chair, that's right. I understand that part of the when you say timing and announcement, you're referring to what exactly? Sorry, Ian?
Oh, sorry. When the partnership ended, they said they could build around Cambridge Terrace, which no one would disagree with.
That's right. I understand the Mayor was in that meeting, but there was a conversation around urban development and partnership with central government. But we haven't had any details or any clarification from central government in terms of what that might look like.
So I guess if I could ask if the drum could be politely, that would be amazing. Redundancies, I know you're going through an HR process. Are we likely to see many job losses through this, or can we give people other
no
things
redundancies.
to do? Oh, that's lovely. So most people were just on contracts or they're seconded?
They're all on contracts.
Oh, okay. Well, it can be a tough place for people to be at the moment. And I hope that the Minister is not rewriting the GPS himself. Can you, because I'm worried it's just going to be a rerun, is there any engagement with local government as a whole over how that is being undertaken? Because I'm surprised that he's getting ready to release it already.
Well, it's just the draft, so the draft will go out for consultation, so it'll follow the same processes as previous GPSs.
But is he doing any consultation?
No, he
No,
on the draft.
prior.
None that I'm aware of.
Okay, so we've got about 4 people left on the question list, and I'd say that's all we have time for. So I'm just going to roll through those. Don't put your hand up. I'm not going to put you down. Councillor Randall.
Yes, in terms of Courtney Place, I just wondered if you could clarify what's proposed there and confirm whether or not there is any plan to bring the Courtney Place design back to council for a decision and confirmation of it being proceeding, or is it just planned to go ahead as is?
No, so the decisions on that have been made. Now we are looking at, and we don't know how much value engineering we need to do, so we will do that, and as Brad said, we will do that with a view to retaining the benefits that make the case for Golden Mile as strong as it is. At that point, we'll be, in terms of sharing the designs will be shared with businesses and hospitality down there as well as councillors. You'll see them.
But there's no plan to bring anything about Courtney Place back to council?
No.
The designs for Courtney Place are probably the closest to being finalised. So Courtney Place is very close to 100% design, bar waterworks. So like Siobhan said, a lot of that was presented when council went through the funding approval, which was hinged on design approval. So the Courtney Place design was very close to final design at that stage.
I understand that, but that was in the context of when all the other elements around it, like MRT, city streets and that sort of stuff, was going to go ahead under a supportive government. There's no thought about re-looking at having the other elements disappearing, re-looking at saying, does this going to work?
It's very difficult to do that when we don't understand what the other elements are going to look like along the rest of the Golden Mile. If we were to start value engineering Courtney Place now, it could have flow-on effects on how the rest of the Golden Mile plays out. So we want to do that exercise in totality. In terms of Courtney Place, we're ready to go into construction in.
I'd also suggest, standard business case development is that you have a set of project objectives that you work to. You're looking to maximise and achieve those project objectives. We've got through that phase. It's taken us a long time to get through that phase. We start with new objectives or revised objectives and try scoping a project to that. That previous approval won't hold any longer, and that funding would likely disappear.
Okay. Is it possible to, is it too late also to consider stopping Thornton Quay project?
Thornton Quay has already started construction. We've already got a contractor on board. Any stopping of Thornton Quay would come with some serious financial implications of penalties that we would need to pay the contractor that we've hired.
Okay. And
final question, Councillor.
Final question. So just to confirm and I guess follow up on the second PT spine, talked about Aotea Quay, is broadly the idea with the second spine to reallocate traffic lane each way for dedicated bus services along Thornton Quay, and so Thornton Quay would go from 3 lanes to 2 lanes?
So we've got to work through those different options. We're right at the beginning of the design phase, so we haven't landed on a solution yet. But Thornton Quay is separate, so it's just from the station.
Sorry, I meant Aotea Quay. Sorry, I wrote it down.
Okay.
I said Thornton Quay. Sorry, apologies. Aotea Quay. So in terms of Aotea Quay and the second spine, you talked about it being Aotea Quay based. I assume for bus priority it needs bus lanes, and so is the approach basically that Aotea Quay will have bus lanes on each side, going each way to carry the extra buses that are needed for a dedicated bus route.
Yes, we will need to reallocate space. Where exactly it comes from, that hasn't been determined yet. And we may need to be looking at Featherston Street as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Free.
I actually want to support my colleague, Councillor Randall, on the importance of the bus plan, because when we came to make traffic resolutions for Hutt Quay, we were taking out lanes of traffic and severely reducing without any real assurance that there was a plan for when we'd get extra bus services. So my question is, what sort of levers can we pull? I know it's not our role, but we are in partnership, so to speak. What sort of levers do we have to actually ask for a bus plan for Wellington, for what's going to happen? What's in the minds of the regional council? I mean, obviously a changing environment, but can we ask for this formally through some process?
Through you, Chair. Look, I would just say that there's actually a very good working relationship at a managerial level between the Chief Executive of the Regional Council and I and the teams here. And as two Chief Executives, we have talked a lot about the importance of ongoing partnership. So while the Let's Get Wellington Moving partnership may have ended, the principle and spirit of partnership remains. And at an apolitical level, those discussions are definitely happening.
I want more than discussions. I'm actually asking what this table can do in terms of a resolution to the regional council, the Regional Transport Committee, or some other forum where we do have some influence to ask for a bus plan.
See, my advice, and it's only my advice, is that in the spirit of collaboration, resolutions directed at another council are probably not the best way to achieve the outcome you wish, and I would focus on the relationship first.
Let's take that one offline, Sarah, and see what we can do. Councillor Calvert.
We referenced objectives that were set by the three parties together previously. Are we re-looking at our objectives, given it's really just down to us now to achieve certain projects?
So for the City Streets projects, we will be revisiting those objectives as part of that process and developing the integrated network plan. My understanding is the individual projects have project objectives as well, and they won't change.
So what won't change?
The projects that are in delivery, we're not revisiting those objectives.
Right, okay. Can officers tell me what they understood from the meeting with government in December when they made their when they met with the council about Let's Get Wellington Moving in terms of the Golden Mile?
No, we weren't there, so we can't comment.
Sorry, what was the question?
What was officers' understanding of what came out of the meeting with the ministers, with government in December about Let's Get Wellington Moving and the Golden Mile? Because I just want to make sure that we've got everyone's on the same page.
I mean, the main ask was that we would agree to disestablish Let's Get Wellington Moving in its entirety, but there was an agreement that given Golden Mile was quite well progressed and that there was some strong support for that and strong support from me, there was a positive agreement that would continue. But we were given the task to ensure that it was brought in-house effectively, to find some efficiencies, and then move forward. They mentioned at the time, their priority was to ensure that moving forward we re-engaged with businesses along Lambton Quay a lot better, because we acknowledged that hadn't been done as well in the past, and that's what the plan is once this transition has happened.
Okay. So I would just like to understand what is coming back to the Governing Council for approval in terms of any of these projects for change control, milestones. Can you tell me what's coming back and when?
So the integrated transport plan, once that's developed, will be coming here for approval. As said, we haven't developed a detailed schedule of what's going to happen when, so we can't give you a rough indication. Couple of years. I don't think we can commit to anything right now.
Okay, so because it's very important as we're in the LTP process, how do we give approval or not, or changes to impact on what the projects are under this umbrella?
I think that's the perennial problem of the long-term plan, is it's a point in time. So we have to, if we are anticipating investment in the future, we have to put those placeholder and funding provision for those investments, but they're still subject to individual business case approval and whichever delegated authority that would be, whether it's council or management. That holds for all future investments.
But how can we see that as part of the LTP?
Well,
even if there's a holding matter, but what the holding amount is for?
Yep. So it's in question. It's the answer to question 4 in the LTP question and answer document.
Yeah, but this is my point. We shouldn't have to find information all over the place. We should have this
Councillor,
presentation.
as Siobhan has said, they're going through a very difficult transition period, so they might not have all the information at hand right now. But I'm confident that they will.
Okay. I will put my questions in writing for a specific response so we've got everything together. Thank you.
And final question from Councillor Chung.
Great, thanks. Sort of following along a little from these questions here, we were talking about when we change a plan, when we change the objectives or scope on it, it changes everything and changes the funding and so forth. So going back and consulting with businesses in the Golden Mile, it's quite clear that a lot of them had opposition to the previous plan. So how do we actually limit the changes that they may actually like to see there, and keep the funding and keep the project that we actually had on track? So
there was significant engagement on the Golden Mile through the business case process, and it included businesses, but it also included, importantly, everyone who uses the Golden Mile. So there was a significant response to that. I think we had over 2,000 submissions to that engagement. I think it was around 65% of those submissions supported the transform option, which is the option that we're going for. In terms of engagement with businesses, we are very aware that it hasn't been as good as it could have been, and that's one of the things that we are endeavouring when we bring it in-house to actually improve significantly. So engaging with businesses on the design and then also on the delivery of the project, so we minimise the disruption to them and we can support them through that process. So we're very committed to doing that. Now, the reason why we're doing these upgrades, as I said before, is actually to stimulate economic activity into the CBD. If we look at Courtenay Place, it is in much need of a makeover. The things we do there are going to support the hospitality industry down there. So it's about bringing those people along with us and ensuring that they've actually got good oversight of what that vision and what the design is and what it's going to mean for them, but then also through the delivery of that, minimising the disruption.
Great, thanks. I agree completely with the objectives of this. Do we have a timeline for when this may happen? So like, when can we actually start engaging with these businesses again?
Yep, so part of the bringing it in-house and the recruitment process is to recruit the engagement people. So we are doing that at pace. We then will develop an engagement plan. So yes, said we're developing all the schedules, we're developing and getting across the costings, we're recruiting for the team. There's a lot of moving parts to this, but we hope within a couple of months we'll have some stability, so we'll be able to have a plan to take out to businesses. Meanwhile, we are still engaging with businesses at the moment through our business development team.
Wonderful. Thank you, councillors, and of course thank you our team for that briefing.